Hello, and welcome to SecureTalk, a podcast where we explore the critical world of information security innovation and compliance. I'm your host, Justin Beals, founder and CEO of StrikeGraph. Together with our expert guests, we'll provide you tools and tips to help your business thrive in the rapidly evolving cybersecurity environment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to SecureTalk. I'm your host, Justin Beals. I've been building software for a long time, and there's one rule I learned early. Every new technology creates new problems. Back when we first started connecting databases to web applications, we didn't think much about SQL injection attacks until I had a penetration test performed and realized where the holes were. And recently, we've moved everything to the cloud, and we had to rethink how identity and access worked for our servers. And now this situation is happening again. Yesterday, I watched my colleague demonstrate an AI agent that automatically updates evidence coverage for control operation. It was impressive, practically replacing thousands of hours of consulting by navigating a series of complex compliance requirements, control specifications, and available evidence. It was also a little terrifying from a security perspective. And here's the risk. That AI agent needs the same access to sensitive information the consultant would have. It's making decisions on behalf of a human user, me, who has different permission levels in each of those systems. And unlike a human, this agent doesn't get tired, doesn't go home at night, and operates based on probabilities, not deterministic rules. Well, we've spent 20 years perfecting identity management for people, usernames, passwords, multi-factor authentication, and role-based access. But AI agents aren't people. They don't behave like people. We turn them on, we turn them off. And our existing identity systems weren't designed for affinities that need to act on behalf of humans across dozens of applications simultaneously, and yet ephemerally. I keep hearing about this identity explosion happening in organizations, and it's not just employees and contractors anymore. Now it's AI agents acting for employees, AI agents talking to other AI agents, and systems authenticating through protocols most security teams have never heard of. The organization that figures this out first are going to have a massive advantage. The ones that don't find themselves locked out of the AI revolution, or worse, wide open to attacks we haven't even imagined yet. What's fascinating is that while most of us are just starting to grapple with these challenges, some people saw this coming years ago and have been quietly building solutions. Today, we're talking with someone who has a track record of spotting these inflection points before the rest of us catch on. Our guest co-founded a company that created an entirely new category in cybersecurity called security orchestration. That company sold for over $500 million. And now he's doing it again, this time tackling the identity challenges of our AI-driven future. His new company is already protecting hundreds of millions of identities, including the emerging world of AI agents. Rishi Bhargava is the co-founder of Descope, a drag-and-drop external identity access management platform. In a career spanning over 20 years, Rishi has run product, strategy, go-to-market, and engineering for category-creating cybersecurity startups and large enterprises. Before Descope, Rishi served as the VP of Product Strategy at Palo Alto Networks, which he joined via the acquisition of Demisto. Rishi was a co-founder at Demisto, where under his stewardship, the company created and later led a new security orchestration category within 3 years before being acquired. Prior to Demisto, Rishi was VP and GM of the data center group at Intel Security and launched multiple products at McAfee, acquired by Intel. Rishi is passionate about technology and serves as an active investor and advisor to multiple startups in Silicon Valley and India, some of which have already seen successful exits. Please join me today in welcoming Rishi to the SecureTalk podcast. Rishi, thanks for joining us today on SecureTalk.
Very excited to be here, Justin.
Excellent. So my first question, and one of our very common questions, is we just really love learning about our guests' journeys and how they gain their expertise. I know you graduated from IIT in Delhi with a computer science degree, but you've had a career in cybersecurity for over 20 years. Can you tell us a little bit about what attracted you to this particular lane in the computer science space?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would say it's not that I chose cybersecurity after a lot of thought. So I graduated from IIT, came to US for my master's at USC, then joined I would say, technically it was a public company, but it was pretty much a startup. In 2000, there were a lot of companies that went public very, very early. So I joined an optical fiber network company. Networking was big. I spent 2 years there. And then I said, okay, this is too big for me. So I want to go to a very small startup. Somebody in my network told me, hey, this is the startup looking for their first engineer. There's just as the technical CTO, founder and CEO. So I went, interviewed, and signed the offer letter within 4 hours of reaching there. It's like, did an interview, signed. Turns out to be that was a security company. That was my first security experience. Now, what's interesting is if you join as an engineer, a security company or an infrastructure company, doesn't matter. You're writing code, you're building software, somebody's giving you requirements. But within a year of being at that security company, it was solid core systems and building their first version of the product, writing all the code. Very quickly, we realized that we need to go sell it. And they said, hey, Rishi, you're good with customers, you're good talking to people. Why don't you take the role of a product manager and start to engage with customers and define requirements? Now, that is where I would say my real exposure to security or information security come in, because now you start to understand a larger environment. What are the type of attacks? What's really happening? What is the kind of problems that customers are facing? And that is where we started to get the exposure to information security. That's how I got into information security. And then since then, I've been in security.
Rishi, that makes sense to me. I remember I was trying to build a consulting business when I was really young, which was really just me, but I wanted to build the company. And my first project was in education technology. And that whole company, its niche was education technology for 10 years. So we never let go of it. Yeah. I think that it's interesting to me that you found a lot of joy working on the product side. I've worked in product for quite some time as well. And we always have these kind of like counterintuitive sayings that we say to ourselves. Like my favorite one is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Or if you had asked the customer, they would have wanted a faster horse. I don't know why they're all based in the 1800s, but is there specificity to product innovation in security that you think a lot of people miss when they come in?
Yes, 100%. By the way, it's interesting, right? I mean, there is very specificity to product innovation in security. And there's another piece, which is there's something nuanced about the security space compared to every other space is what I realized. And I think that's what, how I got into security is different than I stuck with security, because there were multiple points. There was a time when consumer companies were doing so well, from Google to Facebook to social media, and I stuck with security. And I think there the aspect of the adversary is what I would point out. So think about when you're thinking as a product manager, as a founder, building a product, defining the product strategy, you're thinking about what is the next feature? How do I differentiate? In a typical company, you are trying to understand customer requirements and building towards it. In a security company, you're trying to understand customer requirement, building towards it, and then you're trying to see what will the adversary do? How will they throw a wrench into my entire plan, right? Like the whole Mike Tyson saying is like, a plan is a plan till you get it punched in the face. But I think to me, there is this big aspect to cybersecurity where you need to say, this is the direction that the industry is going. Cloud infrastructure is coming out. I need to secure that. And then what is happening in that adversarial world? How are attackers thinking? What tools do they have at their disposal? How will I protect against those? So it even makes it more challenging. You're thinking against an adversary always in a chess game, and you're solving problems for your customers. So that's I think, one aspect which is very different in the security product management world.
Requires an even deeper expertise into the technical architecture, how it works to build an innovative product then, right, Rishi? Yeah.
Yes. And I think almost needs to understand different types of attacks, what kind of attacks are happening, what is the motivation for the attackers. And that's changed. Like that has been continuously changing.
Yeah. Now, in that career, you've had some big company experiences like Intel or McAfee, I believe, and then you started getting into the startup space quite a bit. Did you you're back at the startup space again? Something must be appealing about it. You like to move fast or take a lot of chances.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I've been lucky enough to spend enough time in startups, grew them, build products, went to a big company. I think what really excites me is just building new stuff. Even when I've spent time at McAfee and Palo Alto Networks and other large companies, Intel, I always built new stuff. Inside those, innovated, incubated new ideas, new products, new businesses. So I think for me, I'm this person who's like, I like to start with a clean slate, look at a space and says, what are the big problems to be solved? What is going on in this space? What are the trends? Finding the small pieces to build and then grow on top of that, almost like building block by block from bottom up. So that's what excites me. And I think there's very different pieces you need to understand. You need to kind of see, hey, where's this industry 3 years from now? What is going on here? What is the most acute pain point? So that's what keeps bringing me back to startup and building. And then there is this whole people side, which is also very exciting, because when you're working in that startup mode, you're just building your team. You're working with the same set of folks and spending hours. There is this very personal connection in a startup world, which is not there as much in a larger company.
Yeah. And maybe before we go too much farther, today you're building another company, Dscope. And so you're back in the saddle here. Maybe you can describe for us, your role at Dscope and what Dscope does.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders of Dscope, started this with the same co-founders from Demisto. There's like people aspect coming in. I think the mission with Descope is just to create simpler login experiences for customers, simpler and more secure login experiences for customers. So if you're shopping on a shopping site, why do you need password in today's world? Why can't you do biometrics? So going passwordless is one of the mission from my perspective. Or in the new AI world, how can you create simple login experiences for AI agents to communicate with apps? Like the whole space is called customer identity access management. The bottom line is like, can we simplify login experiences for consumers, customers, AI agents, any of these pieces?
Yeah. It's a really fractured marketplace. I mean, especially as I put on my product hat, because I was complaining the other day to a friend, I have a couple different banks that we work with, and they have completely different authentication measures and weird rules. And I'm like, come on, y'all, there's a standard set of way of doing this that is secure. And also you could be a little more open-hearted about letting me use my own, identification creator on my phone or whatever I need.
Because everybody fractured creates bad experiences for customers. But I think the reality is the following, right? And I think this is what we are trying to change. All of this login experience was designed to keep the bad people out. And the entire focus on the customer experience and the user experience was not there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like users let's just make sure put gates after gates after gates, keep the bad people out.
Yeah.
And that created a huge challenge, like customer drop-offs, sign-up drop-offs. The customer is frustrated. And if you look at the new generation coming in, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, they are not ready to accept those experiences. And that's creating a huge problem for consumer products. And they are trying to simplify it, and that's where we're helping them.
And fundamentally, if you make it super hard, people will try and find ways around, which creates a new security issue.
Security issue as well. Exactly. You're right. Absolutely right.
I mean, having efficient user interfaces is a good security practice.
Yes.
So let me back up then a little bit, Rishi, because I did want to talk a little bit about Demisto and the SOAR category, which I think Demisto was at the front edge of, developing. And for our listeners that might not be familiar, can you explain security orchestration, automation, and response and what that means?
100%. So I think the best way to define it is if you look at a typical large enterprise, they would have dozens of tools, somewhere between 40 to 60 tools, large organization. And these are security tools only, not even IT, right? Security tools. Tools to protect on endpoint security, antivirus, anti-bot solutions. There would be firewall and networking solutions. Now, each of these solutions are blocking attacks, which are basically creating alerts. And sometimes they're not blocking attacks. They're only warning that there is a suspected attack, right? So there is suspicion versus block. Some of these tools are saying your environment is vulnerable. You need to go fix it. So now you have hundreds of thousands to millions of alerts in a large enterprise. Now, how do you deal with those alerts? Somebody needs to look at those alerts, respond to these alerts, respond to them by saying, yes, it's an actual problem, resolved it, didn't resolve. That creates a whole problem. So that is the genesis, which is we created all these security tools to protect enterprises. But now you need to deal with these alerts. And SOAR category, which we were at the forefront of creating, came around to solve that problem, to say, how can we automate the response of all of these alerts? Take an alert, enrich it further, go to multiple different sources. So effectively, the idea was to be able to connect to all these security tools and other threat intelligence sources, take an alert and have a playbook, which is human defined, right? And human defined playbook says, if you see this alert, then go to this tool, take this action, get this information. And if this is the information, do this. And that's all a playbook. And then use that playbook to automate dealing with these alerts and close them out automatically. That's the core concept. Very powerful. We saw some tremendous growth because of the business value we bring to be able to automate these alert responses.
I mean, you figure if your budget on cybersecurity tools is in the millions of dollars, but you're unable to deal with the deluge of data,
yes.
Tacking on another solution that kind of gives you some visibility away from false positive, false negatives, or the ability to delineate what's really working or not, does seem like a very valuable tool set. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's the core value. Did very well in that space. Now, of course, there's, with the innovation of all of the AI stuff, there's even more efficient ways to do it. So that space continues, some brand new innovation being brought into that space.
Yeah. And Demisto had a great outcome, I think, right? Maybe share with our listeners a little bit about that. It was very successful for you guys.
No, very successful. We saw some tremendous growth, 3.5 years of being around. Company was acquired by Palo Alto Networks for $560 million. Incredible outcome, incredible growth. That product continues to lead the space. So Palo Alto acquired the company. The product was rebranded to XSOAR. And then now it's part of a product called XIAM. So incredible continued growth of that product.
And I think in that, before we leave off that particular space, one of the things that I'm perceiving as I go to like the RSA conference every year and try and boil the circus is that a lot of consolidation happening. I'm sure these kind of connector type tools that can pull in disparate elements are critical for that consolidation work that we're seeing in a lot of cybersecurity.
Yes, very true. I think if you look at it, right, just in every space, not just security, it starts with acute problems, solve that acute problem. Smaller problems get merged into that category. So like SIM, which is security information and even management category and SOAR category kind of morphing in together, and just SIMs becoming smarter. And that is what the strategy took. So yes, I think this consolidation, it's a natural course of evolution.
Yeah. So let's kind of move forward, both in your experience and the marketplace, and I think we can talk about some of the areas that Dscope is working on. First of all, I have to say that like logins and identity management is not the sexiest part of cybersecurity anymore, Rishi. But y'all went back to the well.
Yes.
Tell me, were you and your co-founders looking at each other going, why are we doing this? Haven't we solved this already?
So I think the way we approached this was very interesting, right? So Justin, the genesis was that we said we want to solve a problem that is very, very, very big, that is very core to the security landscape. And then there was this personal pet peeve, which is we were helping our families reset passwords, reset accounts.
I am also the IT support for my family.
Exactly. It's like we have all IT support for our family, and that's kind of the first thing. So now if you look at all of those different pieces, the biggest thing that our realization was, we were looking at different spaces, is the number one security problem still emanates from passwords. The number of password breaches out there is huge. Like every 3 months, we see somebody dumping 1 billion plus passwords. Recently, it was from a whole bunch of social networking companies. There was passwords leaked, right? And then you have to go through the cycle of identity theft and passwords leaked and all of that stuff. So we said, okay, do we really need passwords? If you look at the history of passwords came around organically because somebody needed to give access to multiple people to the same computer. So how do they identify a person? And it's like, hey, something you know. Back then, we didn't possess these mobile devices. We didn't have the technology to recognize a person with a face and whatnot. So the question now is, do we still need to keep passwords around, and why? The whole premise was something you know was to give access to a shared resource with something you know. Mm-hmm. And that's what started the customer identity, customer login journey for us as Dscope. And we said, let's get rid of passwords. But how do you get rid of passwords? You need to think about enabling application developers to give them an alternate approach, passkeys, social logins. And then we said, is like, why don't we solve the problem for the developers? Developers don't care about security. They are not really the experts. They're scared to touch it. Like, it's not derogatory to a developer. It's just like, why do they want to worry about nitty-gritties of these things? And that's what says, like, let's descope the identity from the app. The customer identity could be outside of the app. Can we provide 10 lines of code? And that's all developers need to do. And we handle the entire login journey. And that's the core concept, which is 10 lines of code. You design your entire user journey in a visual flow, and we take care of that login experience completely.
Yeah. There's a lot of proof point in that kind of go-to-market model, in the broader landscape. But the major differentiation here is just a better customer experience at the end of the day, because I think on the authentication side, you're attempting to make that easier for that, in the B2C, the consumer style user.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I think about all the open source projects and things like that kind of infected the developer community. Is that a similar type of way as you all think about it? Like, hey, we need to make developers aware that this tool set is more powerful, or are you maybe starting with a product designer? Is there a new group of people involved in identity and access management?
So I think there's two personas. One is, I think, either the developers. So exactly how you said, open source approach, community approach. I mean, not that much open source, right? It's our approach is like, we need to enable developers like good documentation, being able to do things on their own, build things on their own, They want SDKs in all their languages that they support. So a lot of our focus is meet the developer where they are. They want to code in one language, there's an SDK for that. They want to do it another way, here's an SDK for that. Very rich documentation, very transparent development life cycle. So that's one aspect. But the second is security. I mean, a lot of the larger organizations that we work with, security teams are heavily engaged, and security teams drive the requirements. And then they give it to the developer. So it almost starts by the security team saying, this is what we want, give it to the developer, and the developer needs to be helped. So I think we kind of approach the market both from a developer side and the security side, but developer side more.
Yeah. And of course, there's a lot more things we need to identify lately. Like the landscape is growing. It's, not just the consumer, but a day not far away. Actually, I logged into Claude the other day and it was like, hey, do you want to give me access to this thing?
Yes.
And so this identity and access management is moving beyond just even the consumer, but into the machines that the consumer is using.
100%. We call this, by the way, there is a new offering that we did to this experience that you had, Claude, which is, do you want to give access? We call it the Agentic Identity Hub. Now, it's very, very interesting. Think about what suddenly happened, right? There were humans getting access to an application. They would log in. That was where we started our journey. In last 2 years, suddenly, you're giving an AI agent access to a whole bunch of applications. You're giving an AI agent access to your cloud, Google Calendar, to your email, to your sales application. And you want to give access with the consent of a human. The human may have different level of accesses in all of these tools. So you need to give access to the agent on behalf of the user, which is a subset of the user permissions. And you want to give monitoring and ability to revoke, give time-bound access. So because agents are probabilistic, not deterministic. So this just opens up a whole new set of controls and parameters that you want. And this world becomes complicated, but you don't want to expose that complication to the developer, to the customer, and to the agent. So literally now we internally as a group, we deal with three things. We say CX, which is the customer experience. We say DevX or DX, which is the developer experience. And then we say AX, which is the agent experience. Because as we are evolving, the agent is not going to ask for permissions 20 times. You don't want it to. So how do you manage that? So it's a fun world. As you can see, my excitement is like we are excited to innovate in the space and a lot happening here.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about some of those technical style innovations that are happening. Things like WebAuthn or FIDO2, the kind of passwordless style things. What, maybe that I'm going to ask I don't quite understand question. Rishi, can you help describe for me how passwordless authentication works a little bit?
Yes. So let's actually take an example. So the passkeys or WebAuthn world and the passwordless authentication. The simplest way to explain is the public-private key crypto mechanism that exists, which we all know and have used in SSH and decades now. The entire basis of cryptography lies in that. That's the basis. And the idea is when you sign up for passwordless authentication, you create a private key. Private key resides on your device, your laptop, your phone, whatever you're logging with. The public key goes to the server or the website running the service. And then the private key on your device is locked with your biometric on that device. So few very important things. Your biometric never leaves your device. Your private key never leaves your device. Your biometric is used to unlock the private key. And that's the basis of this whole passwordless authentication. So when you do a Face ID or a Touch ID, at that point of time, it unlocks a private key, and then the typical challenge of public-private key crypto. There's something with challenge is sent, private key encrypts it, public key decrypts it. All of that happens to validate that I am who I am, presenting the private key. And the biometric part is just to unlock the private key. So there's few things that makes it very secure. One, it's tied to the device. Two, it's tied to me because of my biometric. So now you have two factors in one automatically. So to really break in, you need to present my biometric on my device, and that is the only way you can log in. So it makes it very secure. And an amazing experience, because if you experience this, and we have some of these demos on passkeys.guru, the demo, you just look at a device and you're logged in. So way more secure than passwords, and way better experience than password, because you don't need to remember anything. You don't need to type in anything.
For our listeners, we'll include a link to what Rishi is describing, the demo, in our show notes today, so you can try it out for yourself. Is it the same idea? I would imagine it is, that you really want a passkey per system to that private passkey. So, we don't, or would you have a singular passkey for multiple systems? Like when I think about password, or I used to have a long time ago, Rishi, I've improved. I used to have the same password for a couple different systems. Yeah. Now I'm very careful about having something unique for each system.
The passkey is unique. So as it works, it's unique to a website. So passkey is timed to a domain. So it's unique, but you don't even see a passkey. Like as a user, you don't, it's a long cryptographic hash. So it's unique to the domain. So it's very secure. Now, this poses another question, which is, now when I go to my mobile and I log in, is that different than than my laptop login? So then there are mechanisms, and Apple, Google, and Microsoft got together, defined these standards to be able to share passkeys across devices, which in a secure manner is shared across devices, so that if you create an account on your laptop, you're able to quickly log in to your phone as well.
Good. And of course, if one system gets breached for some reason, although not usual, at least we've kind of walled that off from the other systems. Yeah.
By the way, even if it is breached, like let's say I give you my passkey, by the way.
Right.
What are you going to do with that passkey? Because the passkey needs to be unlocked with my biometric on my system. So it's like very secure that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Increase. That's excellent. Where are you at in the life cycle with Dscope in building the business? Yeah.
Gone very well. I think we started about 3.5 years ago, April of 2022. Product out in the market, hundreds of customers out there in production using the product. Some of the very, very large organizations with the likes of GoFundMe, Databricks, Navan, U-Haul, many large customers out there using us in their production environments, enabling hundreds of millions of identities across the world. So growing very fast, starting our international expansion, some big presence in Europe now. And again, the nature of the game is that we started with the developer first, free product, open out there. That drove a lot of adoption worldwide. We have like customers in pretty much Asia, Europe, US, North America, Canada. So very, very, very organic adoption as well.
No, we're not going to be able to get off of this particular area with talking a little bit about AI and agentic, as you already cracked open a little bit. And of course, it is a really exciting time. I think you and I have probably worked in probabilistic computer science outcomes for a while now. And I certainly have enjoyed some of the things we do in our product with it. But the things like the MCP protocol, does the work that you're doing with authentication layer onto that in a way? Or,
I think 100%, right? So all the pieces that I talked about, agentic authentication, which is consent, working on user behalf. Eventually, MCP, by the way, I'm amazed at the adoption of MCP and how fast it took off. I have seen a lot of different protocols. I have seen a lot of different standards come around, but it's grown fast. Adoption has grown fast. We are doing a whole bunch of work, which is pretty much, I think, for us, MCP is is a protocol to implement from an authentication perspective. The underlying protocol, OAuth 2.1, which is what MCP spec defines as the authorization layer, is very standard. We have had that support for a long time. But a lot of these specifics, like we have an MCP SDK. To my point, if a developer wants to build an MCP server, I want 4 lines of code, authentication added. Our goal is to take this off of the plate of a developer. So we have an MCP SDK, a lot of the work going on there. We launched Agentic Identity Hub, and the idea is if you're building an MCP server, need to connect to any of the tools, or if you're building an MCP server to enable multiple agents coming in, both sides of authentication we can support, connecting to tools or enabling and protecting your MCP server for other agents to connect to. We are able to support both sides of use cases, and it's seen some great adoption. I mean, I think that space has gone really fast. It's been 2.5 months since we launched the Agentic Identity Hub. Great traction, dozens of production customers already using that. So it's gone very well, and we continue to innovate in that space for sure.
Yeah. For our work, and something I've kind of banged the drum on for a long time, is that when I first started building web applications, we had 3 major layers: data layer, business logic, and the front end. But now I say there's 4, and you need an intelligence layer. And I've been banging that drum for a little while now. And so when we were building our platform, we started with agentic for the intelligence layer in the platform. And we also, one thing, and I'm curious if you agree, designing the right data model was critical. Right. Like bolting on AI with bad data is bad AI, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think, by the way, there's even more to that, right? I mean, yes, the right data model, being able to expose the right set of data to the right set of users, comes with that data model, comes with that governance model. All of those are very, very critical for the AI adoption and use cases.
Yeah. Rishi, we have a lot of listeners that are concerned with the compliance outcomes that they have to reach. I'm curious, how you guys at Dscope have been tackling compliance, maybe, or security compliance and trust with your buyers. What stands out to you from a work there?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, one thing that has happened, I mean, this was when we were building Demisto, it was not the case. A lot of the standardization around SOC 2 and compliance is critical for every business. Like, everybody wants to have well-defined compliance structures and see that policy governance, even from the smallest of the smallest startup. From day one, when we launched our product into V1, coming out of stealth, we were SOC 2 compliant. Yeah. And that was very well received. And the other thing is, SOC 2 compliance for us and in general for our customers, it's not just a compliance. There was a time I lived through the PCI compliance world, where compliance and security was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's not the case. Compliance is a proof of providing the right security controls. That's how we have been thinking. And that's what customers appreciated. And then the last piece is level of automation. You really need granular controls, but higher level of automation. We as a company building today, I don't want to have a team of 5 people just meeting the compliance every year, right? So how do you build the right automation infrastructure to be compliant is very, very important.
Yeah, this really resonates with me. I think when I went through my first SOC 2 audit, of course, in the moment, you're like, this is a distraction. I need to get the product out the door. Don't you trust? You've trusted us for 15 years. And now all of a sudden you want to send an auditor our way. Yeah. I had all the same issues. But as I read the trust services criteria, I was like, these are all just best practices. I'm glad to have a checklist now, actually. I appreciate that someone has given me a bar to go meet.
Yeah. And I think, by the way, it really, if you do it right and if you do it from the beginning, it reduces your work rather than increase your work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now every customer comes to us and the checklist is standardized. They expect us to have a a policy for disaster recovery and a policy for business continuity and a policy for security governance and vulnerability management and this. So we have a framework to work with and deliver the secure infrastructure to our customers.
Yeah. Okay. I have one question I'm curious about, Rishi. You've had a lot of experience building security product. And of course, as you were looking to build Dscope, there must have been some areas where you didn't go, but you feel like there's big challenges and you wish someone would. Is there an aspect of security, whether it be for the dev or for the executive or in that broader space, that you feel like products are missing that someone needs to go build?
Excellent question. I think there's this whole, I still believe, and some of the folks are talking about it, but still not on the radar. I feel the security program, like how a CISO executive manage the security team and the program and the overall, what is more important, what is less important, how do you automate these pieces, is an open area. We have still treated security as a technical tool. The process side of it, the human side of it, the business side of it, the impact and assessment. There have been governance platforms and some attempts there, but not to the level that ideally in the business world we need today.
Yeah.
That's an area I think worth looking at for somebody. And then I think the Security Operations Center, my old world of SOAR, with the new AI-based capabilities, it's still open to be innovated. And I think there's a lot to do in that space.
I think that operations characteristic around security is really interesting, right? Because I agree. We've made a lot of decisions about what to buy based upon the latest breach or,
exactly.
or maybe a CISO's favorite security tool. Compliance and security melding probably pushed that more into operations. And I think the new CISO is almost like more of a business leader some days than a deep technical expert. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rishi, we are so grateful for you joining us today and sharing your expertise. We wish you all the best of luck in your ventures with your co-founders. Yeah. And just really appreciate the conversation.
Absolutely, Justin. Great questions. Amazing to chat. The time flew by so quickly, but excited to talk to you.
Excellent.